Good day, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. Today's subjects for this webinar are all about reporting. So we will be talking about how to set the language for your report to your own language, preferably. We will also see how to change what the reports actually contain and how to make them more understandable. And we will introduce custom dictionaries, which is something new, a new feature for pdfToolbox 10, and could be pretty interesting. First off, how to set the language to your own language. Since this is all about reporting, we will have to see how to make reports. And reports are made using the -- reports call in the command line interface. It is also in the command line interface and in the server where we will change the language of the report this way. When in the command line interface, there is something that you probably know or that you should have a look at, and that is the -- help command. When using that command, you will get a whole list of all the commands you can use in the command line interface and an explanation of what they do. It is a pretty long list. I will show you in a minute during the demonstration as well. A big part of that list is about reporting. So I have a screenshot on the screen right now that shows you that part of the -- help in the command line interface. And you can see one of the thing I highlighted is the language tag. So using language and then between the brackets adding the key for your language, you can export the report in a language of your choice. Since this is a separate command, you can actually export multiple reports in multiple languages like this. So if you like an English report, but also a report in any other supported language, you can export two reports at the same time. This is a list of all the supported languages for reports. So we have English, German, French, but also Brazilian, Dutch, Finnish, Japanese. You can see them all here. Also, there is the support website from Callas, help.callassoftware.com, that contains all the information about reports as well if you want to have a look at something after the webinar or if you have problems later. So you can see the language parameters are always existing out of two letters. For English, that is EN. English would also be the default if your installation of pdfToolbox is in English. Then you have DE for German, FR for French, and so on. Now, how do we use it in the CLI? We say -- reports, add the type of the report. This can be XML, of course, but you can also use any kind of the PDF reports and use the language tag with those. Just add a comma, because in the tags, as we see in the help window as well, you can see it is a comma separated command. So you say -- report, comma language equals, and then the tag for the language you want. Since 4piece is based in Belgium and we speak Flemish, I added Dutch to the command in this example. Let's have a look and let's see if this all works the way we expect it to. So I have a CLI over here. See, this is the same one. Let's clear this up a bit. Okay, so we add the pod to the application, to pdfToolbox 10. We add a profile. You can see this profile is called this doesn't do anything.kfpx. This is because this is a profile without content. I made this a profile without content because even if there is no fixups or checks in the profile, you can still use it to call reports. And you can use it to call specific information from a file, for example, the ink coverage. So this is the profile. Then I will add a file. So I can add this file, which is just one of my test files. And then I can add -- report equals, let's make this a summary report. And then I can add, as I have shown in the example, a comma and say language equals, for example, JA for Japanese, because that will be really obvious. Enter. You can see the profile is this doesn't do anything. The input is the device CMYK sample file. Nothing happened because the profile won't make anything happen. And then after finishing, we have the outputs file and the report that has been generated. Now, if I open the report and I show it to you, you can see this report has been generated. This doesn't do anything at this time, and it is in Japanese. So that's really as simple as it is. You can see this is called device CMYK report, as it says in the command line interface as well. Now, let's show you what I said earlier about having multiple reports at the same time. Let's get back to my Finder windows. So we add the application again, because this is on Mac, so you have to drag it in every time. Then we add the profile, we add the file just as we did before. We say -- report. And for example, let's say we want not just the summary report. So let's say we want a summary, and we want that summary to be in, oh, I made a typo there, in Japanese. So let's say JA. But we also want an XML report that we can use for the MIS system or something, and we want to have that in English because that is the way our system works. Then I can do this, and I say enter, and you will see there have now been two reports generated. Report 0001.pdf, which is the PDF report, the summary report I just made in Japanese. And a second report has been made, which is called device.cmyk.xml, which is the English XML report. So if I open report 001.pdf, which is this one, we'll once again see this in Japanese. So this is the one we made earlier. This is the new one I made now. And we also have device.cmyk.xml, which I will open up. And you can see it here. And this is just as normal in English. So that is basically how the language settings are used. Let me close these up again. Now, there is a whole page on the help.callassoftware.com website that tells you all about the reports. I also said I was going to show you how to see the help page. So we just say, add the application, say -- help, and you get this whole list of all the basic functionalities, the basic functions for pdfToolbox. You can also get more information about specific things by saying -- help and then including the command you want more information about. And then you will get information about how to use that specific command. So you can see -- report, as it said here, and then all the options I showed you in the screenshot about the report types, about when the report has to be generated, and about what the report should include. And the language is one of the options that you will find here as well. So it is really that simple. That was actually really quick. So then, the second thing. This is also a very interesting thing, something a lot of people, even those who have used pdfToolbox for a while, sometimes haven't noticed yet, because it's really something you should notice. And that is the way checks and fixups are reported in the report. So you can see I have two variants of the same check on this slide. So the first one is the very technical name. It's this the one, if you basically take a check, you create a check for device RGB or ICC-based RGB, then that will be the name, the most basic name you can give to it. You can say is device RGB or ICC-based RGB based on the parameters you put in the check. Now, below, what you also could have is the document contains RGB, which can also be reported in the report. These are screenshots from a report generated. Now, the way this is done, it's just the name you give to this check. So you can see this is a profile called Let's Have a Look, and it contains one custom check called the document contains RGB. You can see if I execute the reports, the callas pdfToolbox profile Let's Have a Look found the following errors. Page 1 from my device RGB test document, the document contains RGB. And this will also be the thing that is reported in the report afterwards. So I'll show you in the application how this is done. So I have pdfToolbox in the background here, and let's have a look at this particular check. So I have this check here. This is the one I included in the screenshot. So you can see this is just a basic check. It contains two parameters here, two properties. It is one, is device RGB is true, and then a second one uses ICC-based RGB is true. And I have the the checkbox over here checked that says fire if any condition is met, which basically means these two are now considered in an OR logic and not in an AND logic. So you will get a hit if either the document has object in device RGB or it has object in ICC-based RGB, or both. And the check is named is device RGB or ICC-based RGB, which is basically exactly what it says here. Now, if you do it like this, let's say, okay, we have a device RGB document. If we go to view object inspector, we can have a look at the specific objects here. So if I click this, it freezes, and then we can see this red square is actually in the color space device RGB, and it is red 100%. So you can use the object inspector, which is underneath view, to have a look at specific objects and several values of it. You can see it is actually in RGB. Then if we execute, analyze, we will get a reported error here that says is device RGB or ICC RGB, because it found all the objects. So it found my red box, but it also found my type, which is in RGB black. This type is in RGB blue, and it found all these 8 hits that are RGB. Now we can say create report of this, create a device RGB report. We'll put it in the same folder, save. And now if we have a look at this report, you can see the way the hits is generated is device RGB or ICC based RGB, which is the name of the check we saw. Now let's have a look at this one. So over here, I have the same check. If we have a look at this, it is also is device RGB or uses ICC based RGB, but I named it the document contains RGB instead of giving it this cryptic exact name. I also added to this one, when it does not fire, report as this, there is no RGB present in this document. Now, so if there are no hits on this particular check, then you will see this text in the report. Let's say okay. Well, let's say cancel because I probably touched something. Now, I don't need this report anymore. Well, let's have a look at this one. Use this check, analyze. We will see the same error as before, but now it says the document contains RGB, and it also shows the same problems in the file. If we create a report, and we call this report 2. It will open up. And if we have a look, it now says the document contains RGB, 8 matches on 1 page. This is more clear for people who don't know exactly what device RGB or ICC-based RGB might mean. It's just like, oh, this is the problem. And that is a lot more clear. Now, let's say we use this on the device CMYK test page. Analyze. We don't have a problem, so it reports there is no RGB present in this document. And that's a good thing. So it says with a little green check mark, there is no RGB present in the document. And if we create a report of that, and we call this reports 3, let's put this as well in the secrets folder. Just like it does in the window below, it now says results, no problems found, there is no RGB in this document. So you can do that as well. Then, let's go back. I have another one here. And in this one, I also added a fix-up. The fix-up says RGB has been converted to CMYK. Now, we could also have this fix-up say color conversion to PSO coded V3. But if we call this color conversion to PSO coded V3, then that is a very, well, it's clear, of course, to people who know what's going on. But if you have people who are less versed in what's happening, they might not even know that PSO coded V3 is a CMYK color space. So that is not so clear to the average person who has a look at these reports. So if we want to make this clear, we can call this check, instead of color conversion to PSO coded V3, we can call it RGB has been converted to CMYK. And now if I execute the profile, this is also the same check is actually present here. So this is the same check as in the other one. This is a good opportunity to show off the test functionality here as well. So if I test this is also a new thing in pdfToolbox 10, if you haven't seen this yet. If I test this profile on my device RGB file, we will see that it says there are no errors because RGB has been converted to CMYK, 10 objects, no problems found, there is no RGB present in this document. So it starts off by saying the RGB has been converted and then that there is no RGB present. Now if I use this on the CMYK file, it will simply say no RGB. I haven't tested it yet. I have to press the test button again, and it should say there is no problem. Oh, of course, it says my fix-up actually converts everything, so also the not PSO coded V3. But it converts. It tells you has been converted to CMYK, and not just file has been converted to PSO coded V3, which is less clear. And of course, these profiles can also be used in the command line interface, and then they will give the same information in the report generated by the command line interface. Let's go back to the presentation and let's start with the final parts of today's webinar. Custom dictionaries, custom dicts. Custom dictionaries are, as I said in the beginning of this webinar, a new feature in pdfToolbox 10. It allows you to change the strings that are used in the generation of the report to replace what would normally be reported with something you want to see in the report. So technically, this could do the same thing that we did earlier. You could take the name convert color to PSO coded V3, and you could replace the string by color has been converted to PSO coded to CMYK or to PSO coded V3. So you could replace one string with another. A secondary use of this could be to add a new language to the languages that are supported in the webinar. In the pdfToolbox, you can see these are the languages by default supported in reporting for pdfToolbox. Oh, So you have English, German, French, Spanish, and so on. These are natively supported, but what if you have, for example, Hindi, or I see Chinese is not amongst the supported report languages. What if you want to add those? Well, you could use the custom dictionaries to do that as well, and you could replace the English string by a Chinese string, and you can generate your reports in Chinese or Hindi or any other not natively supported language. So let's go back to where we were, custom dictionaries. So first off, we'll have to make a custom dictionary. You have to create a custom dict, and you do that using the KFBX profile file. This is also in the CLI, of course. And then afterwards, you can add that custom dict path to the reports call, and you will use it in the report. Now, of course, we will have a look at that as well. That's a bit soon. We're not quite done yet. Let's get back my terminal. There we are. And define the windows. So we say the pdfToolbox, and then we will say create custom dict and add the path to the profile. So create custom dict, and let's use the let's have a look profile I used earlier. You will see later why I'm doing this. Okay, so you can see the input was the profile let's have a look.kfbx, and the output was let's have a look.xml. Now, if we open the XML file, we will see this. This is a really long XML file. You can see a lot of stuff is in here. This is because the custom dictionary contains any string that you can find in a report. So you can see this is almost 5,000 lines in this file. And you can translate any string you want. But if you use a profile that contains fixes and checks, you will find those at the very top in the first group. You will see the profile is called Let's Have a Look, and the only thing in there is a check for RGB, which is named the document contains RGB, as I named it earlier. All the other ones in the second group are potentially in any other profile, but not in this one. So if you make a custom dictionary, you should use the profile that you generally use and create a dictionary for the checks and fixes in that profile. That will save you a lot of work, and you only have to translate the stuff that you are actually going to use. So now we see that the string here is let's have a look. So what if we change this value by checking for the presence of RGB color, and the short value for this is there RGB. The long tag, the variable long, is always the name of the thing in the entry. So this, in this case, this is the profile, and the short is always the description of the entry. So in this case, the long is the document contains RGB, that is the name of the check we used, and the short entry would be the description, but I didn't add the description. So in this case, I could add watch out, RGB should be converted to CMYK. And we could leave this here, or we could change this as well, and to make sure that we see the difference, this file contains RGB objects. So you can see I'm only changing part of the content of this XML file. And I'm just changing it from English to English. But if you want to replace this with another language, I could write this in Dutch or in French or in Japanese or in Hindi. And then it would also be replaced. I will save this file and I will save it as 2 because I want to show you the difference as well. We no longer need this. Now, let's use that file. The way to use it, I also showed you in the presentation earlier. You just call for your report and then use custom dict with a path to the dictionary you created. So in the terminal, we add pdfToolbox. We add our profile, which is let's have a look.kfpx. We add a file that we want to inspect. In this case, that would be the RGB file. So device RGB. Then we say -- report, and I will make this a mask report, and then add language. No, I don't need to change the language in this case. Let's just say custom dict equals and the path to the custom dictionary. Let's start with the original custom dictionary, although of course that won't make a difference from the usual report. And then make another one, -- report equals mask, and then -- dict, custom dict equals and a path to the new one. Let's have a look to where I changed some stuff. Let's press enter and we can see we finished the file. We have 2 reports generated, RGB report 0001.pdf and RGB report 002.pdf. The second one here is using the custom dictionary that we adapted. Let's open these 2 reports. So I have 1 and I have 2. So in the first one, if we look at this, it says this file contains RGB objects. Oh, is this also one that uses the adapted dictionary? Well, whatever. You can see this file contains RGB objects, and watch out, RGB should be converted to CMYK. I think I may have, yes, they both use the custom dictionary. Did I accidentally drag the second one in, or did I accidentally save? It seems I accidentally saved before changing it to let's have a look too. But you can see that the string has been replaced. It now says this file contains RGB objects instead of reporting the name as it normally would. We can still generate the same profile again. So let's get back to the pdfToolbox, the profile, let's have a look.kfpx, the RGB PDF, and say -- report equals mask. Enter. Report number 3. And this one should not be using the custom dictionary. There we go. Now this only says the document contains RGB and there is no description. And that is the normal report because it just contains the name of the check, while the one with the custom dictionary says this file contains RGB objects. Watch out, RGB should be converted to CMYK, just the way that we changed it in the dictionary. Oh. This is an XML report. This is what I wanted in the dictionary that we saw earlier. And there we are. So like I said before, if you want to change this by some other language, 2 Objekten. This is Dutch. I can add Dutch here, and then I can use this dictionary to change my report language to Dutch without using the language equals NL that we saw in the presentation. So during this webinar, what have we seen? We have gone over the way reports are being made with the -- report function, where you can find more information about how to activate different functionalities in these reports with the -- help, where there is a whole lot of information about how to activate different functionalities. You can see them here. We have seen what languages are natively supported over here. And then we also saw the way checks and fixes are reported and how to make that reporting more clear by changing the name of the checks and fixes in the profile. They don't have to be cryptic and theoretical. They can be something very clear, like the document contains RGB, which will then be reflected in the report. And then at the end, we saw how to use the custom dictionaries, a new feature. There is also a page on the help.callassoftware.com website about the custom dictionaries and how they are used, where you can find a little bit more information than you see on this slide. And that is all we saw today. I hope you learned something during this webinar. If you have any questions, you can also email support@4piece.com for any information related to technical questions or problems, or in case you want to see or you want to organize a personalized demonstration of these functionalities more to your case. And you can also email orders@4piece.com with any commercial questions about pdfToolbox. You can see those email addresses on the bottom left of this slide. On the right, you see my name and my personal email address. Of course, you can contact me directly with questions as well. Thank you for joining us today, and we would love to see you in our next webinar. Have a nice day.